Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back, way back, to a place where the streets were lined with baked mud bricks. The air smelled like cooked barley and faint ash, and the word comfort hadn't been invented yet. Welcome to the Indus Valley civilization, somewhere around 2500 BCE, where you, yes you, just woke up in a Harappan house with no plumbing, no mattress, and absolutely no warning. The room is square and squat, its clay walls baked hard in the sun. There's one tiny window that lets in a sliver of harsh daylight and a waft of warm dust. You try to sit up, but the low ceiling nearly kisses your head, and the terracotta floor greets your bare feet with unfiltered reality. There are no sandals waiting, not even a rug, just grainy ground and a suspicious smear near the doorway. And that's when the smell hits you. Not bad per se, just earthy, like damp firewood, fermented barley, and goat sweat blended with a hint of drying dung. Your classic Indus Valley breakfast bouquet. You shuffle toward the doorway, trying not to stub your toes on the uneven brick. But let's face it, you do. Twice. Outside, it's already sweltering, even though the sun's barely crept over the flat rooftops. You rub your eyes and glance around, hoping for some morning routine. Perhaps coffee? No. What you get is a stern woman with a plaited braid, thrusting a clay water jar into your hands with all the warmth of an office manager on deadline. She mutters something in a language that hasn't been deciphered in 4,000 years, but the meaning is unmistakable. Move it. You try to stretch your spine, only to remember that sleep happened on a stiff woven cot with no cushioning and a brick-shaped headrest. Historians still argue whether that brick was symbolic, practical, or just a cruel cosmic joke. Either way, your neck is protesting like it's been trampled by a ceremonial bull. As you navigate the narrow alleyway, dodging puddles and more animal byproducts than you care to inventory, you start to appreciate the craftsmanship of this ancient place. The streets slope strategically, leading waste away from dwellings. It's not glamorous, but it's smarter than some modern suburbs. Every block is aligned with a precision that feels eerie. This place was planned, gridded, measured, and optimized. That said, the average doorway is about 4 feet tall, and you bonk your head at least once before sunrise. So much for intelligent design. You stumble past a pile of discarded shell bangles, probably someone's broken wedding stash, and catch a glimpse of a neighbor washing clothes by slapping them rhythmically against a stone slab. She doesn't. Break eye contact. Not for a second. You feel judged. The homes here are made of sun-dried or kiln-fired bricks, stacked like Tetris blocks in a dry, reddish grid. There are internal courtyards, often with a central drain, and you spot one child, gleefully chasing a lizard across the dusty tiles, while his brother tries to brush cow dung into decorative swirls. Hygiene was a big deal in the Indus Valley. Maybe the biggest. Archaeologists are still amazed at how complex the sanitation systems were. Drains, pipes, manholes, even public toilets. And yet, despite all this, you have to walk half a block to use a bucket. A small child hands you something. It's a bead. Just a simple steatite bead, carved and drilled with almost supernatural precision. Beads were big here. Status symbols, trade items, maybe even spiritual tools. You try to hand it back, but the kid scurries away, and now you're stuck holding the ancient equivalent of a $100 bill with no wallet. Suddenly, a low roar echoes through the alley. You freeze. Is it a wild animal? A rival clan? No. It's a bullock cart with an axle that squeals like a banshee, pulled by 2 sleepy-eyed zebu cattle. The driver glares at you like you've trespassed into his personal ox lane. You sidestep, straight into a patch of mystery ooze, and feel your toes squish deeper into history than you ever signed up for. You want to complain, loudly. But you realize, again, that no one here speaks anything you understand. The Harappan script is still undeciphered. Their seals, gorgeous little squares of baked steatite with animals and symbols, Could be anything. Ownership tags, love notes, proto-memes. You try muttering "help me" in your best archaeological tone, but it just earns you more suspicious stares. You spot a group of men squatting near a fire pit, sharing a breakfast that looks like gritty porridge and roasted chickpeas. You're starving. But when you edge closer, they politely hand you a chunk of something. Green. You bite it. It tastes like what grass smells like, with a touch of river mud. You nod, smile, die a little inside. One of them points at your feet and snorts. You look down. You're still barefoot and your soles are now half callus, half compost. You're not even 1 hour into your day. And already you're an outsider, a novelty, a probable cautionary tale. And yet, in a strange way, it's mesmerizing. The rhythm of daily life here is tangible. You can hear the hum of wooden tools against clay, smell the faint sharpness of copper being worked in a nearby forge. Watch the women balancing jars on their heads with all the grace of dancers. Everything's functional, minimalist, purposeful. There are no thrones or gold idols in sight, no grand ziggurats or towering monuments, just clean lines, crisp bricks, and one wildly underestimated civilization that thrived for centuries without needing to shout about it. But make no mistake, you're not thriving. You're not even surviving. You're sunburned, dehydrated, culturally baffled, and pretty sure that lizard is following you, and the day has barely begun. You're clutching the clay water jar like it's your last lifeline, which, frankly, it might be, and you're being waved toward the communal toilet block. A series of square, slightly raised enclosures lined in smooth brick, each with a small hole and a channel leading into a mysterious drainage system. If you're looking for a toilet seat or flush button, you're already in the wrong millennium. Welcome to the Indus Valley bathroom experience. It's advanced for 2500 BCE, perhaps too advanced for your delicate modern constitution. The setup seems simple. Crouch, do your business, rinse with the water jar and let the drain do the rest. But you hesitate. There are no doors, no paper, no polite humming or ambient music, just you, open sky, and the quiet indignity of public performance. As you shift uncomfortably in the doorway, a goat walks past with complete disinterest. 2 children laugh nearby. They're not mocking you, just delighting in your obvious confusion, like tourists watching someone try to eat a banana sideways. You take a breath, square your shoulders, and commit. Moments later, the jar is empty. Your ego is in shambles, and your respect for ancient sanitation is sky high. Historians still argue whether the Indus Valley had a concept of personal privacy or whether communal living redefined all boundaries. Either way, you're learning that modesty is a modern luxury. You shuffle away, pretending that didn't happen, and spot a small figure pouring water into the main street drain from a clay pitcher. The drains here aren't just trenches, they're brick-lined channels with inspection holes and trap systems. It's shockingly sophisticated, the kind of thing modern cities still mess up. The Indus Valley may not have had palaces, but it had plumbing, and that's a kind of royalty in itself. Still barefoot and still questioning your choices, you glance longingly toward the nearest dwelling. Smoke curls from a side chimney, and the aroma of grain roasting on a griddle teases your nostrils. You creep closer, hoping to beg for breakfast. Inside, a woman flips something over a small fire, a flat, floury disc of barley dough, slightly charred and bubbling with what looks like lentil paste. She catches your eye and hands you a piece. You bite in, crunchy on the edge, chewy in the middle, bland as a damp sponge, and yet you're grateful. Your stomach groans in approval. It's not gourmet, but it's fuel, sort of. A nearby child offers you a sip of something cloudy in a pottery cup. You take it. It's milk, but adventurous. Possibly from a goat. Possibly from a goat that regrets it. Still, it's better than nothing. As you finish the last chewy bite, a man walks past and snorts at you. He points to his own feet, then yours. You look down. His soles are calloused, leather tough. Yours are soft, filthy, and already cracked. Welcome to the Barefoot Club. No sandals in sight, because in this world, shoes are for the elite, or the extremely lucky. You wander through the alleyways again, catching snippets of life. Women kneading dough on stone slabs, children playing with miniature carts made of terracotta, a sleepy ox swatting flies with its tail. There's a gentle, persistent hum to everything. No shouting, no chaos, just the quiet churn of ancient routine. You pass a wall plastered with whitewash and decorated with red ochre symbols. Maybe religious, maybe just fancy graffiti. You can't read a word of it. No one can. The Indus script remains undeciphered, a 4,000-year-old mystery of loops and squiggles stamped on seals, pots, and copper plates. Historians still debate whether it was a true written language, a proto-script, or a mnemonic code for traders. You just wish it had a symbol for, "Can I go home now?" As the sun climbs, the heat intensifies. You're sweating in places you didn't know could sweat. The city was built with wind flow in mind. Narrow lanes channel breezes between houses. But there's only so much air can do when the ambient temperature feels like the inside of a clay oven. You try standing in, the shadow of a staircase. But it only provides moral support, not shade. Suddenly, you hear a rhythmic chant from down the street. A group of residents is gathering at the well. It's circular, rimmed with baked bricks, and several meters deep. A young boy drops a bucket down, the rope spinning through his fingers like a well-rehearsed spell. Moments later, it comes up, full, and water sloshes into a series of jars and pitchers. You step forward, desperate for a sip, but someone pulls you back. There's an order to things. Water first goes to the elders, then the women, then everyone else. You are everyone else. Barely. Eventually, you're offered a clay cup. You gulp it down, only to cough violently. It's not dirty exactly, but it tastes faintly of algae and thyme. Still, it's hydration. You nod gratefully, eyes watering. A girl walks past carrying a jar balanced perfectly on her head. She doesn't use her hands. She doesn't spill a drop. You try mimicking her. With your empty cup, it falls, cracks, shatters. Somewhere, an invisible judge writes your name on the list of hopeless outsiders. You glance up. Birds circle lazily overhead, probably kites or crows. You're not sure. The heat is getting to you, and your thoughts start to drift. You remember your own toilet, your memory foam mattress, your filtered water bottle. You ache for modernity, for convenience, for air conditioning. But here, none of that exists. Just sun, brick, sweat, and an endless list of chores you're definitely not qualified for. A breeze picks up, dry and brittle. It smells of sand and cumin. Somewhere in the distance, a bull moans. Or maybe that was you. The morning is ending. You've barely survived a trip to the toilet, a slice of mystery bread, and a cup of ancient pond juice. And yet, there are still 16 hours left in your Indus Valley day, and absolutely nowhere to hide. Absolutely. The good news is, you're no longer hungry. The bad news is, you're now expected to earn your keep. A grizzled elder appears from a doorway, squints at you like you're some kind of unfinished clay figurine, then gestures toward a nearby hearth with a stern nod. You follow, more from fear than understanding, and suddenly find yourself standing in what looks like a communal kitchen, or perhaps a punishment zone. The fire pit is shallow, lined with soot-blackened stones, and the smoke curls upward into the open sky. There is no chimney. There is also no concept of ventilation. You cough once, then twice, and someone pats your back with the force of a falling brick. A woman thrusts a paddle of barley dough into your hands and points to the oven, a domed clay structure with a mouth like a yawning toad. You stare at it. She gestures again. Faster. You inch toward the oven, open its mouth, and are blasted with a wave of heat that feels like the world's oldest hairdryer. You awkwardly slap the dough against the inner wall, where it sticks with a hiss. It immediately falls into the coals. She sighs. You're demoted to flour duty. As you squat beside a stone grinding slab, knees cracking like terracotta roof tiles, you finally start to understand the rhythm of Harappan life. It's quiet, precise, laborious. There's no rushing, just repetition. Grind the grain, stir the pot, add water, stir again, repeat, until dead. While you struggle with the grindstone, you glance around the courtyard kitchen. 2 women are spinning cotton into thread, their fingers moving so quickly they blur. Another is shelling lentils with the resigned grace of someone who has definitely done this before and probably will again until the end of time. You're surrounded by industry, quiet, repetitive, scorching hot industry. A small child tugs at your tunic and offers you a dried date. It's sweet, not bad. You offer a smile and she scurries off, giggling. You wonder how they manage it. This life of endless movement, all under the unforgiving eye of the sun and the smell of wet clay. Historians still debate how much of this work was communal and how much happened inside private homes. Some believe these shared hearths and workshops were signs of a cooperative society. Others argue they were outposts for labor, possibly even early factories. You don't care. You just want out of the kitchen. But fate, or maybe the headwoman's grudge, has other plans. You're herded toward another shaded area where 3 young men are stacking logs near a brick structure with a curious dome and an unmistakable smell. Someone hands you a broken clay pot. Welcome to kiln duty. The kiln is where damaged pots go to be born again, or at least rebaked. It's hot enough to roast your eyebrows clean off. The workers are shirtless, barefoot, and coated in soot. You're offered a strip of cloth to wrap around your head and a glance that suggests you won't survive past noon. Your job, apparently, is to stack the new clay vessels carefully inside without cracking them. Easy enough, except the pots are awkwardly shaped, some wobble ominously, and you've never played ancient Tetris with breakable goods before. Sure enough, on your 3rd attempt, a jug slips, hits the floor, and fractures with a loud snap. Everyone freezes. One man whistles, the others chuckle. You brace for an angry tirade, but instead you're handed a broom made of palm fronds and pointed toward the ashes. You are now the proud owner of the title Debris Specialist. As you sweep up the fragments, you notice the pottery itself is decorated with fine geometric patterns, circles, lines, and fish motifs. Nothing gaudy, just methodical precision. These designs aren't random. They speak a language no one can fully translate, a code of identity and aesthetics. The Indus people loved their order. Even their pots had rules. Someone nearby is sculpting a new vessel on a slow spinning wheel. It's not flashy, just a gentle nudge of hand and clay. You try to copy it later, in secret, and the result looks like a crushed beetle. You cover it with ash and move on. You take a short break under a fig tree, trying to scrape kiln soot from your arms with a shard of terracotta. It doesn't work. You're now part ceramic. The sun has moved higher in the sky, and the air is no longer warm. It's oppressive. Your lips are dry, your legs are jelly, and your fingers smell permanently of smoke and lentils. In the distance, a faint melody rises, a woman humming, maybe singing, while she fans coals with a palm leaf fan. The sound is soothing, like a lullaby, for heatstroke victims. It's the first thing today that hasn't tried to burn you, confuse you, or recruit you. You close your eyes briefly, and in the blur of exhaustion, you realize something. This life isn't chaotic. It's not flashy or loud or even particularly dramatic, but it's steady, relentless, built on ritual and rhythm. There's beauty in that, albeit the kind of beauty that blisters your feet and ruins your back. You snap back to awareness when a young boy pokes you with a stick and grins. He points toward the next courtyard and mouths something unintelligible. You don't need a translator. You know what's coming. More chores. More. You shuffle toward the next courtyard with the enthusiasm of an overcooked lentil, still brushing ash off your tunic and wondering what fresh ordeal awaits. Spoiler. It's sweeping. Not a little casual dusting either. We're talking full rooftop, pre-noon, sun-scorched domestic warfare with grime. The same stern woman from earlier reappears. How does she keep finding you? And thrusts a fan-shaped broom of bundled palm fronds into your hand. Then she points skyward. You glance up. The stairs to the flat roof are steep, narrow, and probably haven't seen a safety code since 2500 BCE. By the time you reach the top, your calves are trembling and your hairline is sweating in earnest. The roof is wide, uneven, and covered in what can only be described as life debris. Husks, dust, dried leaves, and a suspicious patch that might be old millet porridge or recent pigeon regret. Hard to say. You get to work, making bold, heroic swipes with your broom. The debris barely moves. It's baked in, like time itself. You put your back into it. 5 minutes in, your arms are jelly. 10 minutes in, you've swept a sad pile of dust into your own sandals. 15 minutes in, you've inhaled enough grit to develop a personal connection with sediment. Still, rooftops in the Indus Valley weren't just for sweeping. They were multi-purpose platforms, places for drying grains, chatting with neighbours, stargazing, even catching a rare breeze. Some archaeologists believe they also served as social hubs, Harappan rooftop hangouts, minus the sangria and fairy lights. From your vantage point, you can see the city's layout more clearly. Long straight streets, tightly packed homes, few courtyards buzzing with activity. It's a city built with mathematical intent. Historians still argue how centralized their planning was, whether some civic architect oversaw it all, or if every household just had an unusually good eye for geometry. Either way, you admire the view for a moment, then sneeze violently. Dust, always dust. A boy appears at the roof's edge, holding a flat tray of wet laundry and a face full of mischief. He slaps a tunic down hard on the bricks, smirks, and gestures for you to do the same. You take a damp sheet, try to imitate his motion, and instantly splatter yourself in all directions. The boy laughs so hard, he nearly falls off the roof. You smile through the embarrassment. It's the closest thing to bonding you've managed today. Below, you spot two figures leading a goat along the main road, its horns painted with red ochre, its back draped with garlands of marigolds. Some kind of ritual, perhaps. The goat looks unimpressed. Same. Eventually, you're summoned down from the roof with a shout and a hand wave that doesn't suggest praise. The broom is taken from you, inspected, and then promptly replaced with another object. A curved bronze tool, not quite a spoon, not quite a trowel. Time to tackle the drains. You're led to the street's edge, where a grated channel runs between the buildings, slightly sunken and covered in centuries-old engineering swagger. It's wide, brick-lined, and angled perfectly for runoff. Unfortunately, today it's clogged with unmentionables, bits of plant matter, animal detritus, mystery sludge. You don't want to know, and frankly, you can't afford to care. With a sigh, you kneel and start scooping. It's slow, squelchy, and humbling. Still, it gives you a front-row seat to Harappan street life. Women pass with bundles balanced on their heads. Children dart between alleys. A man hawks something that smells like fermented rice and feet. A dog saunters by like it owns real estate. You pause to study the bricks under your knees, perfectly standardized, some stamped with symbols. These weren't slapped together haphazardly. Each was measured, molded, fired, and laid with the kind of care you wish someone had taken with your lunch. Some scholars think these bricks were mass-produced at central facilities. Others believe every family made their own. Either way, they've lasted 4,000 years. Your phone case cracked after one. As you scrape the final sludge from the drain, a small bird lands beside you and pecks curiously at your sandal. You give it a wary look. It gives you one right back. Mutual confusion achieved. You stand, stretch, and groan in a language older than time. Your back pops. Your knees crack. You feel like a terracotta sculpture that's been dropped and badly glued. You try to find a shady spot to rest, but a nearby woman claps twice and gestures toward this Next courtyard, you freeze, she points. You obey. Inside, a group is weaving. Threads stretched taut across simple looms, hands darting in and out, creating patterns that are both intricate and orderly. You're handed a spindle, and what might be raw cotton or very fluffy spider web. Either way, it resists your every move. Your fingers are clumsy, the fibers cling to your sweat, and you're fairly certain you've just tied a knot that violates the laws of physics. Someone redoes your work silently. You pretend not to notice. Despite the humiliation, the process is oddly calming. The repetitive motion, the low chatter, the smell of dye from nearby vats, it lulls you into a trance-like state. Historians still puzzle over how textile production was organized here. Some think there were professional guilds. Others suggest families worked from home. You think whoever did it had the patience of a sun-baked saint. By the time the sun starts to lower, you've completed 1/2 meter of tangled yarn and generated 3 separate finger blisters. You proudly show your work to an elder woman. She looks at it, tilts her head, and then uses it to mop up a dye spill. You are, in a word, crushed, but you're learning, slowly, or at least becoming less actively terrible. You slump beside a pillar, sweat dripping into your eyebrows, and whisper a quiet prayer to the gods of air conditioning. So far, your day has included manual labor, culinary confusion, and deep spiritual reflection on the importance of modern footwear. Only 13 hours to go. You're beginning to suspect the Indus Valley is running some kind of ancient reality show, and you're the unwitting guest star. Just as your body begins adjusting to the rhythm of grinding, sweeping, and being politely ignored, you're beckoned by a wiry man with clay-streaked arms and a deeply sunburned neck. He leads you past the looms and out into a side yard where rows of unfinished pots are arranged like sunbathing turtles. A group of artisans kneels near a workbench stacked with wheel-thrown pots and slabs of raw clay. The man gestures for you to join them. You're now in pottery class. Welcome. Your fingers are about to become enemies. You're handed a lump of wet clay and pointed toward a low, hand-spun potter's wheel. It's spinning slowly, like time itself, and you're expected to form something recognizable without creating a public hazard. The clay is warm, sticky, and disturbingly judgmental. You try to center it, but it squirms like a slimy beetle. Your first pot looks less like a vessel and more like a crying mushroom. A nearby teen snickers. His own pot is immaculate, smooth, symmetrical, decorated with precise lines and dots. You think about blaming the humidity, but you know better. These kids have been at this since toddlerhood. You, meanwhile, can't even open a jar of pickles without assistance. A second attempt ends in structural collapse. Your third is promising until the lip folds inward, creating what might generously be called an avant-garde design. The instructor mutters something and replaces your wheel with a tray of shards. You're now promoted, or demoted, to kiln cleaner. Again. The kiln is a familiar nightmare. Heat radiating like dragon breath, ashes swirling with every step. You're handed a flat paddle and asked to shovel out yesterday's debris. You find yourself sifting through shards of failed pots, half-fused lumps, and one piece that looks suspiciously like a baked frog. Someone nearby chuckles and calls it art. As you work, you can't help but notice the design consistency across the pottery around you. Certain motifs appear repeatedly. Fish, circles, flowing lines. These weren't doodles. They were symbols, possibly clan markers, religious emblems, or just really committed branding. Historians still argue whether the designs had spiritual meaning or were more like product logos. You wonder what your misshapen blob would have signified, probably warning not microwave safe. A potter leans over and shows you a clay seal. Small, square, stamped with a unicorn-like creature and several symbols. These seals were everywhere in the Indus Valley, used for trade, storage, and possibly even identification. You hold it up, to the light, admiring the craftsmanship. The image is crisp, the lettering confident, Despite being carved by hand without magnification or proper tools, you feel suddenly, painfully, like an underachiever. Your seal-making attempt, meanwhile, looks like a snail crawled across a pancake. The potters let you try anyway. They fire it. It shatters. You sweep. This is your life now. You're called away. Just before your self-esteem completely erodes, and you follow a pair of older boys toward the granary. Your ears perk up. Granary. That sounds promising. Maybe a cool, quiet corner filled with the comforting smell of stored grain. Maybe a bench. Maybe snacks. Instead, you're led into a cavernous brick structure, stiflingly hot, filled with enormous wooden bins, each groaning under the weight of barley, millet, and lentils. The floor is stone, the air thick with dust, and there are beetles. Absolutely everywhere. Big ones, fast ones, ones that make eye contact. You're handed a woven basket and told to help scoop grain from one bin to another. No explanation is offered. You just start shoveling. Your arms ache instantly. The basket digs into your hip. The beetles are doing laps around your feet like it's the Indus 500 grain storage here isn't just about feeding families. It's political. These granaries might have supplied entire neighborhoods. Historians still speculate whether food was centrally distributed or if local merchants handled the trade. Either way, you're now a tiny cog in a dusty, sneezy machine that may or may not respect OSHA standards. You pause to wipe your forehead and spot a rat darting along the wall. You are too tired to react. The rat looks at you. You nod. A moment of mutual exhaustion passes. You lift another basket of grain and accidentally dump half of it onto the floor. A man barks something sharp and points to the spill. You drop too. Your knees scooping frantically. There's no broom, there's just your hands and beetles and shame. By the time you're released from grain duty, your arms are trembling. Your nose is clogged with dust and your soul has gently separated from your body. You sit in the shade of a wall, cradling a chipped water cup, your legs stretched, out like half-cooked noodles. A young girl sits beside you and begins humming. She doesn't speak, just hums, a soothing, looping tune that somehow slows your pulse. She offers you a fig. You accept. It's dry and chewy and possibly older than you are, but it's kindness. And at this point, that's gourmet. Across the courtyard, a man is sculpting small figurines, animals mostly. Tiny clay bulls with oversized horns, possibly used in rituals or maybe just toys. You watch him press a new shape with his thumb. The bull's eyes are uneven, the tail wobbly. It's beautiful. You're too tired to feel embarrassed anymore. Too hot to care about your crumbling dignity. You've spent the last few hours failing at crafts, being outpaced by children, and losing arguments with gravity. And somehow, this is still only mid-afternoon. Only mid-afternoon. Just when you think you might finally be left alone to melt gently into the shade like a forgotten pat of ghee, someone claps their hands and beckons you. You rise like a haunted scarecrow and shuffle after them, feet dragging, dignity leaking from every pore. You're led past a sun-bleached cartwheel under a crumbling lintel and into what looks like a trade yard. There's a camel. It sneezes on you. The camel is tethered to a wooden post, chewing something that may once have been edible and blinking with the slow disdain of a creature that's seen too much. A man ties a satchel to its side and mutters something that sounds suspiciously like a prayer. You're handed a sack filled with something. It smells like cumin, but looks like dried grass clippings. The man pats the camel's rump and then, quite unceremoniously, smacks your shoulder. You're going on a delivery. Run. The cart is low-slung, wooden, and attached to 2 oxen who look like they haven't had a good day since the invention of wheels. You climb aboard and immediately sit on a bent nail. The driver, a teenager with one eyebrow and no discernible patience, clicks his tongue, and the oxen begin their sluggish, stomping trudge through the alley. As you rattle down the main street, you pass scenes that would make for beautiful postcards if you weren't too sweaty to care. A woman pouring dye into a shallow vat, indigo swirling like a midnight sky, a child with smudges of clay on his cheeks, balancing a tiny cart. Two old men debating something over a pile of fish bones and bead strands. The cart lurches suddenly. A wheel hits a stone, and you're nearly launched into a wall. You grip the wooden frame, whispering quiet regrets to every bone in your body. The camel trots beside you, judging your core strength. Eventually, the road widens into what can only be described as a marketplace, or as close to one as the Indus Valley gets. There are no stalls or flashy signage, just long stone platforms, with wares laid out in tidy rows: beads, bangles, fish, barley, spices, copper tools, and quite a lot of salt. You're told to unload the sacks near a woman surrounded by ceramic jars. You do so with all the grace of a collapsing ladder. She inspects your delivery, sniffs one bag, then sniffs you. You try to smile. She does not return the favor. She hands you a small token, circular, carved with a tiny bull, and you suddenly realize it's currency. Not coins exactly, but standardized tokens. Maybe for trade, maybe for record keeping. Historians still debate their exact function. You debate whether this earns you a lunch break. As you back away from the transaction, you bump into someone. Hard. You turn and find yourself face to face with a trader. Tall, elaborately wrapped in linen, and draped in a frankly excessive number of shell bangles. His eyebrow rises. You mumble an apology. He mutters something in return that sounds vaguely like tourist. He offers you a polished bead the size of a small coin. It gleams. You're intrigued. Then he names a price by pointing to 5 clay seals. You have one. He smiles sympathetically and moves on. You've just been out-haggled in a language you don't speak with money you don't understand. Bravo. You wander the marketplace, watching as residents swap goods with little fanfare. Everything's tidy, precise, and oddly polite. No shouting, no price signs, no sales pitch, just quiet, efficient bartering. It's oddly soothing, until you realize you're starving, broke, and still technically on camel duty. You round a corner and come across a stall lined with carved steatite seals. Each is different. Some feature animals, others have rows of the famous Indus script. You stare at one with a strange, 3-headed figure seated cross-legged. It's mesmerizing, possibly religious, possibly administrative, possibly just an ancient doodle gone rogue. The seller sees your interest and offers you a cracked one for free. You nod gratefully and accept it, turning it over in your hands. You're holding a piece of history. Literal, dusty, possibly contaminated but still pretty cool history. A sudden squawk breaks your reverie. A goose, an actual goose, has escaped from somewhere and is now charging through the market like it owns the place. It honks. People step aside casually. You, naturally, panic. You try to sidestep and instead knock over a stack of terracotta jars. The crash is impressive. The silence that follows is worse. You freeze. Someone sighs deeply. You begin the ancient rite of apologizing with hand gestures, head bows, and frantic stacking. Miraculously, no one yells. One man even offers you a shard as a keepsake. You take it with trembling hands. It's probably cursed. Your driver appears again, camel in tow, and waves you back toward the cart. You climb aboard, try not to sit on the same nail, and begin the trundling journey back through the labyrinthine streets. On the way, you pass what looks like a warehouse, rows of bins, each labelled with marks in unreadable script. A man stands beside them, entering something onto a clay tablet. It dawns on you that inventory tracking existed before alphabets. This civilization wasn't just smart, it was bureaucratically smart. Ancient spreadsheets, basically. Historians still argue whether this means a centralized government or just really passionate list makers. You arrive back at the trade yard and slide gracelessly off the cart. The camel snorts in your direction. You bow slightly. Respect. The driver leaves without a word. You find a low stone bench near a well and collapse onto it. A young boy drops a wet cloth on your shoulder. You don't know if it's pity or protocol. You don't care. It's damp, and that's enough. You close your eyes briefly and feel the heat radiating off every surface. Your fingers are dusty, your lips are cracked, your muscles are plotting mutiny, and it's still not evening. And it's still... Your brief moment on the bench ends abruptly when a woman with a braided bun and the gaze of someone who has never accepted nonsense in her life gestures sharply at you. You're up again, wobbly, confused, and deeply suspicious. She places a small clay seal in your palm, points to a long building with a low ceiling, and utters a few clipped syllables. You nod, as if you understand. You absolutely don't. You shuffle to the structure in question. Inside, it's cool and dim, the air thick with dust and the smell of clay and crushed herbs. There are rows of shelves, each stacked with bundles, scrolls. No, cloth packets, possibly. On a stone table lies an array of small tablets, each covered, in the Indus script, tight, neat carvings of lines, loops, and tiny animals. They stare at you with the confidence of a civilization that absolutely does not need your approval. A man walks over, sees the seal in your hand, and nods. He places a blank clay tablet in front of you and hands you a pointed stylus. You are apparently expected to write. The problem is obvious. You can't read the script. No one can. Scholars today still can't crack it. They debate whether it's a full language or a proto-script, whether it was alphabetic, syllabic, or something entirely different. You, meanwhile, are holding a stick and hoping no one notices the cold sweat forming under your hairline. You make a few vague marks. 1 line, a dot, maybe a curve. It looks like a squashed mosquito. The man raises an eyebrow. You try a second time, this time carving what might be a lopsided cow. He sighs and gently takes the stylus from you, then turns the tablet over and starts again. You've been excused from writing duty. You shuffle off to a nearby corner where a woman is inspecting rows of seals. They're organized by shape, symbol, and material. Some are steatite, others terracotta or faience. Many have that same mysterious figure you've seen before. A unicorn, or maybe a cow with ambitions. You lean in to examine one and knock over an entire stack. The woman catches the top piece mid-air and gives you a look that somehow says, "Don't." The town seal room is quiet, almost reverent. There's a sense that this place matters, not just as storage but as memory. Each stamp represents a person, a trade, a shipment, the past, preserved in ceramic miniatures. The sheer volume of them is staggering. You begin to wonder how many stories were lost with their meaning. You're soon ushered out of the seal house and back into the sunlight. Someone hands you a clay tablet and a tiny figurine, possibly a bull, possibly a very muscular goat. You nod, solemnly, and pretend you understand. They take the items back. Ceremony complete. You're thinking, just maybe, you can sneak away for a nap when another hand grabs your sleeve. You are led to an enormous sunken courtyard surrounded by steps. The floor is paved, the walls lined with baked brick, and at the center, water. Cool, still, green-tinged water, shimmering gently in the sun. You've arrived at the Great Bath. The atmosphere is quiet, sacred almost. A few figures stand on the steps, solemn and still. A man lowers a bucket, scoops water, and begins to pour it over his head. A woman follows, rinsing her arms and feet. You're given a stern glance and a motion to remove your tunic. You hesitate. There are no changing rooms, no privacy screens, just thousands of years of cultural difference and one very exposed you. You awkwardly step in, the water shockingly cold against your sun-baked skin. It hits your knees, then your waist, then your pride. You lower yourself fully and try to blend in, which is difficult when you're actively gasping from the temperature change. But oh, what relief. The water may be a little green, but it's clean. The Harappans were obsessed with hygiene. Every house had drains. Public bathhouses like this one were central to community life. Whether the bath was used for daily washing, religious ritual, or both is still up for scholarly debate. Right now, you don't care. It's the best thing that's happened all day. You soak quietly as other bathers come and go. No one speaks. There's a hush here, as if words might disturb something ancient and invisible. You close your eyes, Let the water hold you, and for a brief moment, forget the blisters, the camel, the drain, the kiln. Then someone taps your shoulder and hands you a scratchy cloth. Time's up. You climb out, now cooler, but not remotely drier, and try to wring out your tunic with limited success. As you pull it back on, a gust of wind reminds you of your sunburn. Your skin is now both roasted and pickled. You sit for a moment on the warm brick edge of the bath, watching a child float, a flower on the surface, and reflect. These people weren't primitive. They were precise, methodical. They understood things we still puzzle over: engineering, sanitation, community. And yet they lived without language we can read, without monuments we recognize, without even a known name for their civilization. No kings, no conquests, just balance. Then a gust of wind kicks up your still damp tunic and smacks you in the face. Balance, it seems, remains elusive. You leave the great bath trailing damp footprints and mild regret, your tunic clinging in places no fabric should. You imagine that a gentle towel and perhaps a glass of iced tea would follow next. Instead, you're met by a youth wielding a bowl of something lumpy and steaming. It's lunchtime, and, by the smell of it, the scorpions may have been invited. The bowl is handed to you with what could be generosity, or a desire to watch you squirm. Inside, you find a soupy concoction of lentils, root vegetables, and what looks suspiciously like legs. Not long legs, mind you, short, crunchy ones. You take a bite. The flavor is earthy, peppery, and vaguely alarming. You crunch. Something clicks. You chew anyway. A nearby man catches your expression and holds up a translucent exoskeleton, grinning. Yep, you've just eaten part of a scorpion, possibly on purpose. You nod politely, continue eating, and decide that chewing quickly is the best strategy. And in truth, it's not terrible. Protein is protein, and your stomach has long since stopped caring about nuance. The Harappan diet was varied and practical. Lentils, barley, millet, dates, riverfish, goat's milk, and yes, the occasional insect surprise. The rivers around here teemed with life. And snacks. You sit under the sparse shade of a neem tree, while a group of children chases a wheel down the lane, whooping and laughing. Another child squats nearby, using a stick to draw a picture in the dirt. You glance down. It's a surprisingly accurate fish, possibly your lunch's cousin. You try to rest for about 30 seconds. A man wearing a beaded necklace and a deeply unimpressed expression approaches and points to his jaw, then to yours. You nod slowly, confused. He beckons. You follow. What you find next is a tidy mud brick structure filled with medicinal tools that look more like torture devices. There's a wooden table, a stone bowl filled with herbs, and a wide tray of sharpened flint drills. Your molar has been aching, mildly but noticeably. Guess what? The healer noticed too. You try to back away, but a gentle hand lands on your shoulder. You're seated. The healer holds up one of the flint drills with an expression of absolute calm. You do not share this calm. He opens your mouth, taps your tooth, and nods. Definitely cracked, Harappan dentistry was shockingly advanced. Evidence shows that these early practitioners used bow drills to treat cavities. They even smoothed out toothware with tiny stone tools. You try not to faint as the healer packs your mouth with what tastes like crushed garlic and damp tree bark. Then, the drill comes out. The good news, he doesn't drill all the way. The bad news, he starts. The sensation is like being whispered to by bees who hate you. It's not pain exactly, more like pressure combined with mortal awareness. After a few excruciating turns, he steps back, rinses your mouth with warm, brackish water and smears something sticky on your gums. You thank him. You think it might have come out as a groan. As you stumble outside, clutching your jaw, a teenage boy hands you a strip of dried date and pats your back like you've just joined a very exclusive club. You chew the date gingerly, determined not to use your molars ever again. You wander the path away from the healer's hut and find yourself beside a low wall where several young men are seated around a small fire, tossing bones. Not theirs, thankfully. They're playing a game. The bones are carved like ancient dice, and their game involves throwing them into a shallow circle and arguing over the results. You squat nearby, watching in fascination. One of them waves you over. You try your luck, toss a bone, and immediately lose. Twice. They all cheer. You think the cheering is for you. You're wrong. You've just paid for everyone's next round with your last seal token. They thank you and go right back to playing. You've been swindled again. You lean back against the wall, letting your eyes drift over the dusty horizon. It's late afternoon now. The light is softening, and the harsh glare of midday is giving way to long shadows. A breeze stirs, carrying the faint scent of river mud and jasmine. You spot a cow strolling down the path, adorned with coloured ribbons and painted horns. It is majestic. It is also blocking traffic. 2 ox carts wait patiently as the cow slowly takes its time. Cows, of course, were central to Indus life, providing milk, dung for fuel, and apparently traffic disruption. Historians still argue whether these animals had religious significance at this early stage, or were simply revered for their usefulness. You just know they have no regard for your schedule. You're beckoned yet again, this time toward a raised platform surrounded by flickering oil lamps. Evening prayers are about to begin. You're ushered into place beside a man holding a clay dish filled with incense. A few women chant softly in a language that sounds like water and wind. The smoke rises in delicate swirls. Someone hands you a flower and points to the altar. You place it carefully beside a clay figurine of what may be a mother goddess, or possibly just someone holding a cat. The symbolism is unclear. The moment feels sacred anyway. You sit in stillness as the sun dips below the rooftops, casting golden light across the brick walls and weathered lintels. The wind picks up, tugging gently at your tunic. You breathe. This finally feels survivable. Until you remember your jaw is numb, your stomach is arguing with scorpion legs, and you're probably about to be asked to do guard duty with a stick. As twilight deepens, casting long brick-red shadows over the rooftops, you feel that universal tug of fatigue, the one that tells you to find a bed, a mat, a sympathetic cow, something to collapse onto. But the Indus Valley has different plans. A wiry elder, clad in a linen wrap, and sandals made of braided fibre, yes, he has sandals, how rude, taps your shoulder and points toward the perimeter wall. You blink. He hands you a staff. It's about your height, slightly crooked, and entirely unmagical. Then he gestures with 2 fingers, eyes, then outward. You're on night watch. You consider asking for armor, or maybe a flashlight, or at least a snack. Instead, you're guided up a sloped ramp to the city's edge where the mud brick wall stretches ahead, chest high and thick, the last polite boundary between civilization and wild things that go moo in the night. A young man joins you, nodding silently. He has a torch. You do not. He also has a sling on his hip. You have a stick. He smiles. You die a little inside. Your companion leads you along the rampart, which gives you a sweeping view of the outer world. The inky outlines of fields, the faint glint of river water far off, and the slow, measured march of stars across the sky. Somewhere out there, a jackal yelps. Closer in, a frog croaks with questionable rhythm. You lean against the wall, trying to look alert, and nearly fall asleep standing up. Your stick slips. You pretend you meant to do that. The truth is, the Indus. Cities likely weren't plagued by violent warfare. No evidence of standing armies, no grand fortresses, no murals of glorious conquest. Historians still debate whether this was a truly peaceful society, or just one that disposed of weapons very efficiently. Either way, you're not exactly under siege tonight, just under-rested. Still, guard duty is a thing, and you're expected. to walk the wall, keep watch, and avoid tripping over your own exhaustion. You shuffle along beside your torch-wielding partner, trying to match his silent confidence. He pauses occasionally to listen, really listen, to the rustling in the distance. You nod sagely as if you too can distinguish between wind and tiger. Spoiler, you cannot. A soft bell chimes from somewhere inside the city. Timekeeping here is done through routines and the stars. No clocks, no alarms, just the movements of the sun, moon, and deeply judgmental roosters. Your companion pauses near a corner tower and sits cross-legged, watching the horizon. You do the same. He offers you a roasted chickpea. You accept with the enthusiasm of a person who hasn't eaten anything non-leggy in hours. It's crunchy, slightly burned. Perfect. The silence stretches. Your body starts to relax. The heat of the day has finally ebbed, replaced by cool wind and the dry scent of baked brick. You look up. The sky is velvet black, pricked with stars. No pollution, no glare, just pure, ancient starlight. You spot Orion's belt or something close. The constellations are familiar, even if nothing else is. You whisper to yourself that this isn't so bad. Then a bat dive bombs your head. You flinch, drop your stick, and scramble after it. Your companion doesn't move. The bat continues on its way, cackling, probably. You find your stick under a pile of dried cow dung and decide not to think too hard about it. Eventually, a replacement watchman arrives. You hand him the stick like it's Excalibur, then shuffle down the ramp, legs groaning, joints clicking. You've been on your feet for hours, and your knees have filed several complaints. You're guided to a small room, a sort of guard bunkhouse, if you will, where a raised cot of woven rope awaits. You drop onto it with a noise that can only be described as prehistoric wheezing. The cot creaks, but holds. Barely. You close your eyes. A moment of peace. Then you notice the pillow. It's not a pillow. It's a brick. A smooth, slightly curved terracotta headrest, raised just enough to ruin. Your night, you lie back. It clunks against the base of your skull with the affection of a vengeful ancestor. You try shifting. Nope. Too high. You try folding your arm under your head. Now your arm is asleep and your jaw is still sore from that charming flint dentistry. You roll onto your side. The headrest rolls with you. You give up. These headrests were likely designed for airflow and posture, maybe even symbolic alignment. Historians still argue whether they were functional, spiritual, or just the first documented prank. You argue with gravity. The room is quiet. A moth thumps against the wall. Outside, a cow bellows once and is promptly shushed by a neighboring goat. Someone coughs 2 doors down. You stare into the dark, swatting occasional buzzing things and hoping they aren't the reincarnated souls of every pot you broke earlier. Eventually, your breathing slows. The cool of the night settles. Your mind begins to drift. The sounds blur together. Soft hooves, flickering torches, the whisper of linen rustling in sleep. And then, a shout. You bolt upright, whacking your head on the wall. There's a rush of feet, voices rising. You stumble to the doorway and peer out. A flood. Not raging water, not yet. But a thick, oozing tide has crept into the lower alleys. People are already hauling up baskets, herding goats, blocking drainage channels. The river, ever patient, has decided to reclaim its land. You stare, dazed, as someone tosses you a bucket. Of course, it's going to be a long night. You are holding a bucket, standing ankle deep in ancient river water, and questioning every decision that has led you to this point. Around you, the residents of the Indus Valley spring into action like a well-oiled, if slightly soggy, machine. There's no screaming, no chaos. Just the wet slap of sandals, the bark of hurried instructions, and the distant wail of a goat who does not appreciate moisture. The flood isn't a full-blown disaster. Yet, it's a creeping menace, a sluggish tide that sloshed in from the overfed river nearby. These floods happened every few years. Seasonal, inconvenient, and highly democratic. They soaked poor and wealthy homes alike. Equal opportunity dampness. Someone hands you a second bucket. You're now the proud owner of an inefficient water displacement system. You try to mimic what the others are doing, scooping water, tossing it down the nearest slope, muttering to yourself like an apprentice sorcerer. The ground under your feet is slick with clay and silt. You slip once, recover, and pretend it was a dance move. A nearby child laughs. You glare. The child continues laughing. Drainage was something the Indus people mastered, most of the time. Their cities had advanced systems, covered channels, street slopes, soak pits. But even good engineering has its limits when the river decides to throw a tantrum. Historians still debate whether these floods contributed to the civilization's eventual decline, or if they were simply a regular nuisance, like monsoon mosquitoes or goats in the granary. A group of men hauls large baskets of earth and stone to reinforce the edge of a canal. You're drafted into carrying duties. The basket is heavy, the rope handle bites your palm, and your back whispers sweet threats. You trudge alongside a line of others, all silent, determined, and entirely better at this than you. At one point, someone shouts, and the line pivots. You miss the cue entirely and keep walking, smacking directly into a mud wall. There's a soft squelch and an alarming pop from your hip. You smile weakly and limp into line. As the sun begins to rise, yes, rise, because apparently this flood started just before dawn, you're given a short reprieve. You collapse on a raised step, soaked, shivering, and staring at your hands, which now look like they belong to a much older, saltier person. A woman passes you a cup. It's a warm, herbal brew that tastes faintly of basil, mud, and gratitude. You sip it gratefully. A second cup follows, filled with barley porridge that clings to your spoon with the enthusiasm of drying paint. You eat it anyway. Chewing feels like a miracle. The rising sun throws golden light across the glistening bricks. The water has slowed, not gone, but no longer advancing. People begin to smile, laugh even. A toddler sits in a shallow puddle, delighted. A dog trots past carrying a sandal it definitely did not own earlier. You help stack sandbags, mud bags, near a public well, where the water level is being monitored by a man with the air of someone who knows exactly how much is too much. He eyes the level, nods once, and vanishes into the crowd. The work slows, becomes quieter. People mop out courtyards with palm brooms. Clay walls are patched. Goat pens are resecured. Someone begins to beat laundry against a rock with what can only be described as passive-aggressive flair. You sit on a barrel, perhaps formerly used for grain, now repurposed for sitting, and exhale. Your feet are pruned. Your tunic is stuck to your spine, and you're fairly certain your left eyebrow has absorbed a full tablespoon of river water. But you helped, sort of. Maybe not well, maybe not efficiently, but you carried a bucket, and that counts for something. One of the elder women passes by and pats your head. It's not affectionate, it's more like she's checking to see if your skull has softened. You take it as a win. Later, you find yourself in the middle of an impromptu repairs crew. The house you stayed in the night before has a small breach along the lower wall where the water licked too hard. Clay bricks are brought, mixed with straw and mud, and pressed into place with practiced hands. You try to help. You mostly get in the way. Someone hands you a lump of clay and points to a small gap. You squish it in, smoothing it carefully. It stays. You beam like you've just invented walls. The sun climbs higher, drying surfaces and spirits. The streets are muddy but walkable. The goats have resumed their campaign of benign chaos. Someone's cooking again, flatbread from the smell of it. A man nearby wrings out a tunic over a drain, muttering in a tone that probably translates to, "This is why I told them we needed a second canal." The city returns to its steady rhythm. The people of the Indus Valley know the river's moods. It gives them water, fish, trade. Occasionally, it also gives them very wet ankles and the opportunity to test their patience. But they adjust, they repair, they carry on. You, on the other hand, are now approximately 63% river. You wander down a side street, your limbs moving on autopilot. Everything aches. Your jaw still feels tender from the dentist's flint drill. Your shoulders have achieved new levels of resentment. Your inner thighs are no longer on speaking terms, and yet you're still here, still upright, still breathing, still confused about how anyone thrived like this for centuries. But thrive they did, with no gold thrones, no war murals, no celebrity kings. Just order, cleanliness, community, and the occasional surprise flood. You turn a corner and find a man asleep on a rooftop, legs crossed, arms folded. A cat curls beside him, purring like an ancient motorboat. You almost join them. Almost. Because someone just handed you a shovel. The shovel is wooden, slightly warped, and smells faintly of onions and resignation. You stare at it. It stares back. Then a teenager, barefoot, sun-tanned, and entirely too cheerful, motions for you to follow him toward what appears to be a dusty pit behind one of the granaries. You were hoping for a nap, or a chair, or at the very least, a gentle breeze. What you get is archaeology's answer to CrossFit. You arrive at a shallow trench where several others are already digging, hauling and muttering. The soil is dry and crumbly, but just beneath the surface lies a layer of compacted clay, scattered with bits of ash, bone fragments, and what might be an ancient doll's arm. You're told to dig carefully, yet quickly, a paradox that immediately breaks your brain. You plunge the shovel in and hit something, a thunk, a very solid thunk. Everyone turns. You panic. You kneel and brush away dirt with your hands. It's a large, rounded pot, half buried, unbroken. A few impressed lines encircle its neck. Your digging partner whistles low and gives you a nod of approval. You bask in that nod for approximately 2.3 seconds before being handed a smaller tool. No more shoveling. You're now on precision duty. That is, scraping away millimeters of dirt like it's a bomb defusal scene. Your knees sink into the earth. Your fingers become miniature brooms. You unearth part of a pot, a shard of carved bone, a copper pin. Someone finds a bead. Another, a comb. You glance around. This isn't just random clutter. This is the midden heap, the dumping ground, and also, weirdly, a treasure trove. Historians still debate whether these heaps were municipal dumps, ritual deposits, or just the ancient version of behind the shed. Whatever the case, it's filled with clues, proof of how people lived, what they discarded, what they broke, and what they cherished until it snapped in two. As you scrape gently around a terracotta ring, the kid next to you leans over and offers a flat stone disc. He mimics flipping it. A game. You smile, you try it. It lands upright, rolls off the edge, and disappears into the dirt. He laughs. You now owe him something. You don't know what. Probably another bead. Eventually, a call goes out. Digging stops. Everyone gathers near the granary courtyard, where an elder is performing what looks like a blessing, an offering of water, some herbs, and a loop of shell beads. You recognize the seal he places beside it. It's the kind used for storage records. This, apparently, is their version of inventory management. Part ritual, part administration, part spreadsheet with personality. You're handed a thin reed stylus and asked to help mark clay tags. You try to copy the symbols carved onto a tablet, but yours come out shaky. Your bulls look like melted bread rolls. Your script, abstract at best. Still, you press the tag into a soft brick and pass it along. No one throws anything. You take that as progress. Next comes the sorting. Pottery shards, bones, shell fragments, burned grain. Each gets its own pile. You are in charge of unidentifiable bits. It's the largest pile. After an hour, someone waves you over to a row of baskets tied shut with twine. You open one and discover fish. Very dead fish. Very aromatic dead fish. You close the basket. You move on. Another contains dried herbs. Another, beads, sorted by color and size. Another, bracelets, carved from conch shells. The craftsmanship is so fine, so symmetrical, it makes you irrationally angry at your own fingers. The Harappans were master artisans. They traded their goods far and wide, mesmerizingly tiny beads, shell bangles, metal tools. Some of these objects have been found as far away as Mesopotamia. Historians still wonder just how interconnected these ancient societies were. Trade was happening, that's clear. Who was doing the networking? That's less certain. You're led next into a small workshop. The air is thick with smoke and something vaguely metallic. At the center is a low brick furnace, its insides glowing a dull orange. You're shown a lump of copper, a mold, and a pair of tongs that look like they've seen better decades. You nod. You're ready. You are not ready. The copper is placed. In the fire, it hisses. You watch, fascinated, as it begins to soften. The smith works quickly, with a rhythm that feels more like dance than labor. He pours the metal into a narrow mold, cools it with water, and taps it free. A knife blade, thin, sharp, balanced. He hands it to you. You almost drop it. You take it to a table and try to polish it. The stone rubs awkwardly. The blade wobbles. Your polishing cloth gets caught and tears. You accidentally create something halfway between a letter opener and a very aggressive spoon. The smith takes it. He nods. You pretend he means it. Outside, the light is beginning to shift again. Golden, long. You realize with a slow shiver that evening is approaching again. How long have you been here? A day? A week? A year? Time in the Indus seems to move in long, sandy loops. You sit under a tree near the workshop. A young girl hands you a flute, carved from reed. You try to play. It squeaks. She giggles. You hand it back. In the distance, a cow bellows. Somewhere, a baby wails. You think you hear singing, low, rhythmic, rising in the air like steam from wet bricks. The city breathes around you. Not a metropolis of noise, but a quiet organism, ancient and slow-moving. You rest your head against the wall. A lizard crawls over your foot. You don't move, because somehow you're starting to feel at home, The comfort doesn't last. It never does. No sooner have you settled into a state vaguely resembling peace, head resting against warm brick, limbs buzzing with fatigue, and the sky painted in the soft mauves of dusk, then you're nudged awake by a boy with startlingly clean feet. He gestures emphatically. You're needed. You follow, somewhat sideways, through winding alleys that now glow orange under torchlight. The sky darkens. The air grows heavier. You pass sleeping dogs, coiled ropes, and people preparing fires for evening meals. The smell of something being roasted, maybe lentils, maybe eggplant, maybe mystery, drifts by and tugs at your stomach. You haven't eaten since that porridge incident, or maybe the fish basket. Time is soup now. The boy leads you toward a raised stone platform at the city's edge, where a group of robed figures stand silently. Bowls of oil flicker beside them. One figure, taller than the rest, and wrapped in multiple layers of cloth, despite the heat, hands you a bundle of herbs tied with twine. You look down. It smells of sandalwood and something sharp, like fennel or fresh-cut grass. You've arrived at the temple platform. Ritual hour. You're not entirely sure what's expected of you, but you're handed a small clay dish. Oil is poured into it, and a cotton wick is laid inside. Someone lights it with a glowing reed, and suddenly your hands are full of ancient meaning and open flame. The group begins to chant. Low, soft syllables in a tongue that never made it into modern textbooks. It flows like water, like breath, like heat radiating from sun-baked bricks. You don't understand the words, but the cadence settles in your ribs like a second heartbeat. You're guided in a slow circle around the platform, barefoot on sun-warmed stone. Each step is deliberate. At each corner, someone drops a pinch of dried herbs into a fire pot, releasing a brief burst of aromatic smoke. You cough on the second one. no one notices. Historians still debate the religion of the Indus Valley people. There are no massive temples, no towering idols. Just these small platforms, clay figurines, seals stamped with trees, animals, and horned figures in meditation. Some see evidence of early Hinduism. Others argue for a cult of fertility, or nature, worship, or something entirely unknown. The truth? No one knows, which somehow makes it more beautiful. You reach the final corner. Your lamp's flame sputters in the evening breeze. You protect it with your hand and bow like you've seen the others do. Your knees creak. Your tunic catches a spark. You flap it out before anyone notices. Maybe. After the final chant fades, you're handed a small offering, a sweet ball made from dates and barley, sticky with honey and effort. It's still warm. You eat it in one ecstatic bite. You would fight a camel for another. You linger on the platform as the others disperse, the night now fully fallen. The city glows in patches, lamps in windows, torches by doorways, fires flickering in shared courtyards. A couple of children run past you barefoot, giggling, chased by a dog who clearly doesn't understand the rules of tag. You walk slowly toward the central square, where musicians have gathered. Not a concert, nothing formal, but a cluster of rhythm. Clay drums tapped gently, string instruments plucked, and someone humming what might be an ancestor of a lullaby. You sit on a low wall and watch. A man plays a double reed flute. The sound is nasal, winding, and oddly soothing. Someone begins to clap a beat. A few others join in. A girl with bangles stacked nearly to her elbows begins to dance, her feet slapping the stone in rhythmic bursts. It's not a performance. It's just what people do. You close your eyes and let the sounds wrap around you like a blanket woven from dust and moonlight. Until naturally, the mosquitoes arrive. They swarm with the enthusiasm of beings who've just discovered buffet dining. You swat. 1. 2 more take its place. Someone hands you a smouldering coil of herbs. The smoke chases a few off. Others remain. You accept your fate as part of the food chain. You retreat to the edge of the square, where a group is reclining on mats. They chat, laugh, chew something fibrous. One man offers you a twist of leaves. You chew. It's bitter, then hot, then oddly minty. You may never feel your tongue again. Night deepens. Someone begins to tell a story. No idea what it's about, but it involves lots of gestures and increasingly ridiculous facial expressions. The group bursts into laughter at the punchline. You laugh along, mostly because you're thrilled to hear people sound joyful. Laughter here is a balm. You wish you could bottle it. Eventually the group starts to drift off, some to homes, some to rooftops, some curling up right there on the mats, heads resting on rolled-up cloth bundles or one another's shoulders. You're given a woven mat and a clay cup of warm-spiced milk. It tastes like earth and nutmeg and mercy. You sip it slowly, leaning back against a courtyard wall, watching the moon rise above the baked rooftops. Someone sets down a small lantern nearby. It flickers, casting shadows that dance like shy spirits. You lie back. Your bones sink into the mat. The stars wink. The distant beat of a drum fades to nothing. A cat creeps past your foot, purring like a miniature furnace. You pull your tunic tighter around your shoulders and sigh. You've survived another hour in the Indus Valley, and, somehow, you're not entirely sure you want to leave. You wake up to a chicken pecking your elbow. It takes a moment to register your surroundings. The warm stone beneath you, the crumpled mat under your back, the faint flicker of dying embers nearby. For a few delicious seconds, you think you're in your own bed. Then the chicken clucks indignantly and hops onto your stomach. Reality re-establishes itself. You sit up slowly, blinking at the early morning haze. The city is already stirring. Women sweep courtyards with bundled palm brooms. Children yawn exaggeratedly, and somewhere a man is arguing with a goat that's very interested in his laundry line. You stretch, you creak. Your knees pop like overcooked lentils. You wonder if maybe you've aged 15 years overnight. Then someone hands you a bowl of warm barley gruel and a flat cake of charred millet. Breakfast. You eat it with the resigned gratitude of a time traveller who's forgotten what toast tastes like. Today, you're told you'll be visiting one of the special workshops. That sounds promising. You're handed a folded cloth and led through a series of winding alleys toward the artisan quarter. You pass a line of bead polishers hunched over flat stones, rubbing tiny, perfect spheres of carnelian until they gleam like droplets of sunset. It's mesmerizing and a little maddening. The level of precision is frankly insulting. One false move, and a week's work rolls under a goat's hoof. You're invited to try. Of course you are. A craftsman hands you a dull bead, a square of fine sandcloth, and the look of someone who's seen too many amateurs try this before. You hold the bead gently, rub carefully. It rolls away instantly. You chase it across the floor, under a loom, past a lounging cat, and retrieve it from a small pile of something suspicious. When you return, the craftsman has already started polishing another. You sit, quietly. The bead industry in the Indus Valley was no joke. These weren't just pretty accessories. They were social indicators, trade currency, and quite possibly ritual items. Some workshops produce tens of thousands of beads. Historians still argue whether the work was done by full-time specialists or part-time perfectionists with excellent eyesight and nerves of steel. You suspect the answer is both. After thoroughly failing at polishing, you're redirected to a lapidary station where an older woman carves designs into shell bangles using an obsidian tool. She does it so effortlessly that you hate her a little. She hands you a blank bangle. You hold the carving tool like it's a live snake. You try a spiral, you create a divot, you try a flower, you produce something that looks like a startled amoeba. She takes the bangle back, pats your head twice, once for effort, once for your suffering, and shoos you off. You end up at a dying vat, where a few workers are dunking cotton into indigo, turmeric, and madder root. The colours are rich: crimson, deep blue, sun gold. Your job is apparently to stir the vat. Seems simple. It is not. You slosh the mixture too fast. A wave leaps out and soaks your arm, your tunic, and the unfortunate sandal of the person next to you. You apologize profusely. They raise an eyebrow, then hand you a mop made from reeds. You mop. You slip. You fall into a basket of damp yarn. You are, once again, reassigned. At this point, you're running out of trades to fail at, until someone points you toward a modest corner with a line of small clay figurines. Animals, mostly. Bulls, elephants, birds. They are crude but expressive. One goat has a smirk. A monkey appears mid-gossip. You are asked to try. Clay is familiar, forgiving, friendly. You shape a tiny bull with slightly uneven horns and a defiant tail. It stands. It doesn't collapse. It even looks vaguely like a bull. You show it to the overseer. She nods. A small nod, but a real one. You beam, then immediately trip over a lump of clay. To recover, you're invited to carry a box of finished goods to the merchant's platform. You lift it with care, it's heavier than it looks, and carry it slowly through the bustling square, weaving between carts, water pots, and loitering chickens. You deliver the goods. You are rewarded with a handful of dates. You eat them with the enthusiasm of a person who nearly drowned in dye 2 hours ago. Then you're asked to help organize stock at a nearby stall. This is a chance to sit. You sort beads by size, color, and luster. Your fingers cramp. You drop several. A child helps you gather them with no judgment. You feel oddly comforted. Later, a trader arrives with new goods. Lapis lazuli, shimmering and blue as sky-reflected water. Not from around here, from the far north, from Bactria, maybe even further. You're holding something that has crossed mountains to be here. It makes your own journey, your failed pot making, your goat collisions, your emotional scorpion lunch, feel somehow noble. You help unload the lapis, storing each stone in a carved box lined with soft cloth. The weight of them in your palm feels oddly profound, heavy with distance, dense with story. As evening creeps in again, painting the city in amber and soot, you find yourself back at the courtyard, kneeling at a wash basin, scrubbing dye off your arms with ash paste and river water. A woman nearby sings while grinding, grain, her voice low and steady. A child beside her strings beads, murmuring a rhythm to keep pace. A dog stretches out under the bench, perfectly at peace. You glance down at your own hands, stained, blistered, scratched. You made a bull today. It was terrible, it was yours, and somehow that feels like enough. Now, you wake, again, in a different place. Somehow, someone moved you during the night. Or maybe you shuffled there yourself like a half-conscious beetle. You're not entirely sure. You're curled on a mat beneath a shaded awning, with your head resting on a sack of millet and a small goat eyeing you as though you're occupying its bed. The air is already warm, and your muscles have officially declared independence from your central nervous system. Even your eyelashes are sore. You shift, groan, and immediately realize your molar is throbbing again. Of course it is. A nearby woman notices. She beckons you, and you follow her with all the enthusiasm of a doomed squirrel. She leads you past the communal ovens, where people are already baking the morning's flatbread, to the healer's courtyard again. It's quieter this time. No drills are humming, just the faint smell of crushed herbs and warmed oil. The healer greets you with a nod, and what you now recognize as a smirk. He gestures for you to sit, then opens a small pouch and removes what looks like, oh no, a tiny polished bone needle. You start to panic. He laughs softly and waves it away. Not today. No more drilling. Today, it's poultice day. He presses, a paste to your jaw. Something cool, sharp-smelling, and suspiciously green. You try not to breathe through your mouth. Then he wraps a strip of linen around your head, tying it under your chin in a way that makes you look like a sleepy monk or an overcautious harp seal. The pain eases. You nod, grateful. He hands you a soft wedge of something that tastes like boiled dates and cloves, and you chew on the other side. You leave, jaw pulsing gently, but no longer trying to escape your face. Small victories. As you return to the central plaza, a group of men and women are assembling for what appears to be a public discussion, though not the shouting kind. They sit in a circle, passing a carved stick back and forth as each person speaks. You sit nearby, pretending to be a plant. Someone hands you the stick. You panic and say, yes, very confidently. They nod. You have officially participated in local governance. Historians still debate how power functioned in the Indus Valley. There are no obvious palaces, no grand statues of kings, no inscriptions boasting of battles or lineage. Some believe it was a decentralized society with power shared among elders, guilds, or religious figures. Others propose a complex, maybe even bureaucratic, theocracy. You now propose a third option: gentle peer pressure and excellent seating arrangements. After the meeting disperses, you're handed a broom. Not again. But this time it's different. It's symbolic. Part of a ritual cleaning of the shrine area before a local festival. You sweep, not for sanitation, but for ceremony. The air smells of ghee and incense. Garlands of flowers are being hung across low archways. The figurine you saw yesterday, the seated, horned figure, is being decorated with turmeric paste and what looks like pearls. You're handed a small copper bowl filled with marigold petals. You scatter them clumsily around the platform. They look like sunshine, even in shadow. Children are painting clay dishes with red and black pigment. You try your hand. Your dish looks like it was painted mid-earthquake, but no one criticizes. A small girl helps you fix it with the addition of several bright dots. Now it's celestial. You beam. Food is being prepared. Not just daily rations, celebration food. Sweet lentil balls, roasted chickpeas coated in honey, strips of dried, mango rehydrated and stewed with tamarind. You help grind spices with a stone mortar the size of a watermelon. Your arms complain. You ignore them. You're given a sweet rice cake wrapped in a leaf and told to offer it at the shrine. You kneel, unsure if you're doing it right, and place the cake beside the figurine. The horned figure stares back with its unreadable expression. You nod awkwardly and whisper, "Thanks, just in case." The afternoon turns golden again. Music picks up. Drums, pipes, clapping. People are dancing now, not in unison, not in formation, but in joy. One child spins until she falls, laughing. An elder claps along with exaggerated flair, then pretends to fall asleep mid-beat. Everyone laughs. You're dragged into a dance by two teenagers and do something that might generously be called swaying. You are clumsy. You are uncoordinated. You are sweating. They love it. They mimic your flailing. And soon the whole group is dancing your dance. Something between a confused heron and a surprised eel. You fall down, laughing. Someone hands you water. Another, a sweet made of ground nuts and honey. It's chewy. It sticks to your molar. You don't even care. Later, you find yourself at the city's edge, staring at the setting sun. A trader sits nearby, arranging clay seals into neat piles. You sit beside him. He picks up a seal with the unicorn creature, places it in your palm, and closes your fingers around it. A gift. No words. Just a nod. The sun slips behind the horizon. The brick glows briefly, then cools. The air softens. You're tired but clean, sore but whole, hungry but not starving. You're still here, still surviving, maybe even living. You awaken the next morning to the sound of distant grinding, stone against stone, rhythmic and steady. It's oddly soothing, like a lullaby played backward. You sit up, wrapped in the familiar crusty embrace of your well-worn tunic, and find that your molar, praise the river gods, has finally stopped complaining, or it has gone fully numb. Either way, it's a win. Today is different. You can feel it in the air. People move with intention, as though something important is approaching. There's a tension, not anxious, but electric. Even the goats look unusually focused. You're summoned to a storage yard where several large bullock carts are being loaded. Sacks of grain, bundles of dyed cloth, and crates of pottery are being stacked and tied down with precision. One of the traders gestures toward a smaller cart. You, it seems, will be helping with a delivery of tribute. You try to clarify what tribute means in this context, but you're met with a firm pat on the back and a woven basket placed in your arms. It smells faintly of turmeric and roasted sesame. As you set off behind the lead ox, the city gradually gives way to dusty paths lined with fig trees and scrubby grass. The sun climbs lazily over the rooftops behind you, and the breeze, rare and blessed, is just cool enough to dry some of the perspiration you've already begun to accumulate. You pass fields where farmers are guiding ploughs pulled by humpbacked zebu. Their movements are fluid, experienced, almost meditative. One man stops to wave, his fingers stained with the dark earth. You wave back, nearly dropping your basket. The caravan continues, past small clusters of huts and outposts. Some are homes, others seem to serve as way stations or trade depots. The boundary between city and countryside in the Indus Valley is porous. Less a wall, more a gentle fade. Historians still argue whether these outer settlements were subordinate, autonomous, or part of a vast, decentralized network that functioned without kings or armies. All you know is, it's a long walk, and the ox is winning. Eventually, you arrive at a riverside platform shaded by a structure of lashed reeds and timber. Here, several representatives from neighboring communities have gathered. Their garb is slightly different, looser tunics, more elaborate beadwork, a preference for peacock feathers apparently. The air buzzes with quiet excitement. You help unload the cart. Crates are opened, beads, pottery, woven mats, dried herbs, copper tools. all set out for exchange or as part of ceremonial gifting. In return, your group receives bags of salt, large bundles of dried fish, and a mysterious jar filled with what smells like fermented tamarind and secrets. You sit on the edge of the platform, legs dangling above the water, watching the exchange unfold. No shouting, no haggling, just calm negotiations with the occasional raised eyebrow or knowing smile. A boy next to you offers a palm leaf fan and fans your face without being asked. You're too tired to be surprised. You nod your thanks. He grins. After the last bundle is loaded, a few older men begin a riverside ritual. They pour libations, what looks like sweet milk, into the water while murmuring something low and steady. You're handed a lotus bud and pointed toward the current. You let it go. It bobs. For a moment, then spins gently downstream. You ride back in the cart this time, bumping along as the ox plods faithfully homeward. The basket beside you emits the soft rattle of beads and the faint tang of pickled something. You doze. When you wake, you're back inside the city walls, greeted by familiar smells: ash, lentils, sandalwood, goats. A toddler points at you and laughs. You have no idea why. You nod solemnly anyway. You are directed again toward the rooftops. Not for chores this time, but for observation. The rooftops are busier than usual. Families sit together on mats, eating, chatting, preparing. Small offerings. The city below glows in the amber hue of late afternoon. You find a spot beside a boy polishing a clay flute. He doesn't look up, but he hands you a sweet. Something made of jaggery and puffed rice. It sticks to your fingers. It's glorious. From your perch, you see the city's heartbeat more clearly. Children dashing through alleys, chickens darting like feathery projectiles, the rhythmic splash of water being poured into rooftop cisterns. A woman in the distance hangs bright red fabric along a line. It flutters like fire. You spot a dog chasing a goat, chasing a child, chasing a rooster. You do not intervene. As the sun begins to dip, the rooftops grow quiet. People turn westward. The river, visible in glimmers, mirrors the sky in streaks of orange and indigo. A flute begins to play, a slow, lilting melody. A second joins in, then a drum, soft like a heartbeat heard through cloth. It's not a festival exactly, more a daily ceremony, a farewell to the sun. You lie back, head resting on a bundle of linen, staring up at the evening sky. A breeze brushes your face. Your eyelids grow heavy. Somewhere, a baby coos. Somewhere else, an argument about lentil storage fades into laughter. And for the first time since you arrived, mud-smeared, sun-dazed, utterly bewildered, you feel something you hadn't expected. Belonging. Your sense of belonging lasts exactly until the sandstorm hits. You wake to a strange stillness. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful so much as wrong. You sit up slowly, blinking at the faint reddish hue in the air. The sky has turned, the colour of steeped brick. The breeze has vanished. The goats are nowhere to be seen. Even the chickens look nervous. A woman walks briskly past you carrying 2 large jars, both wrapped in cloth, and says something sharp in that inscrutable, long-vanished tongue. You don't understand the words, but the urgency is universal. You follow her instinctively, and within seconds, a gust of wind slaps your face with a handful of powdered history. The sandstorm begins with a murmur, a far-off roar like the world breathing in. Then comes the rush, hot wind, stinging dust, the slow disappearance of everything not tied down. You pull your tunic over your mouth. Someone throws you a headscarf. You wrap it clumsily. It helps, a little. People spring into motion. Windows are shuttered, doors barred. Cloth is stretched across gaps. Pots are overturned and tucked into corners. Rooftop fires are stamped out. The city contracts like a creature closing its shell. You, of course, have been assigned water duty. Because of course you have. A man hands you a half-full jar and points toward the cistern near the well. The water there is at risk of contamination from the dust. You and a team of volunteers, 2 elders, a teenager, and a goat, uninvited, form a line and begin securing the openings with reed mats and tightly wrapped cloth. You've never moved so fast while simultaneously being sandblasted. The wind picks up. Dust fills your eyes, ears, teeth. You taste clay. You blink, squint, shuffle forward like a confused bandit. Someone shouts something muffled and shoves a brick into your hands. You wedge it onto the mat's edge, trying to pin it down. The storm isn't catastrophic. It's not lifting houses or flinging carts, but it's relentless. It covers everything. Every crevice fills with grit. Every pore prickles. You are now approximately 78% sand. Historians still argue whether the Indus cities were eventually abandoned due to environmental changes. Flooding, shifting river paths, even prolonged droughts. Storms like this may have been a regular occurrence. They're dramatic, but survivable. If you're clever, if your drains work, if your civilization knows how to bend with the wind. The Indus people clearly did. By midday, the worst has passed. The wind softens. The dust begins to settle like so much ancient memory. The city reappears, one rooftop at a time. People emerge, coughing, blinking, spitting sand. Children laugh. Of course they do. Everything is coated in a thin orange film. The goats reappear, looking smug. The chickens strut like they just won a war. You sit down and shake your sandals. Enough sand falls out to make a commemorative beach. You wash your face in a shallow basin. The water turns to mud. You don't care. It's cool. You splash again and sigh like a man 10 minutes into a shampoo commercial. Once the storm cleanup begins, everyone falls into step. Courtyards are rinsed. Cloths are washed and rehung. Fires are relit. Cooking resumes. You're tasked with sweeping. Again. But this time, no one expects much. You sweep the rooftop half-heartedly, making more dust than progress, but it's meditative, therapeutic. A child joins you and makes little hills of sand, sculpting a goat with stick legs and a very aggressive facial expression. You help. Your goat has one leg longer than the others and no head. The child adds a bead and calls it special. You accept this. Later, you're asked to help with a ceremony of cleansing. It's a small thing, a family gathering in their courtyard, burning dried neem leaves, passing water from hand to hand, anointing doorways with mud and turmeric. You assist by holding a jar. It's heavy, and you slosh it once. You apologize. They smile. This isn't religion with grand spectacle. It's faith in rhythm, in doing the same thing day after day, in acknowledging nature's tantrums with composure and a touch of honeyed grain. As the sun sets, the air cools more sharply than usual, washed clean by the storm. The city breathes easier. The sky, finally cloudless, is stained with apricot and plum. You're invited to sit with a group of potters around a low fire. They share tales, at least you think they're tales. One involves elaborate hand gestures, several chicken impressions, and a reference to someone who once fell into a vat of dye and emerged purple for 3 days. It gets a laugh. You offer a story in return. They don't understand your words, but your miming of trying to sit on a brick pillow and falling off backward earns applause. Someone hands you a flute. You squeak out a few notes. It sounds like a bird sneezing. They cheer anyway. You're part of the noise now. As night falls, you curl up near the wall of a house, head resting on a wrapped bundle of cloth that smells faintly of cumin and goat. You pull your tunic tight, the last of the day's warmth leaking into the earth. And as you drift off, gritty, exhausted, oddly content, you realize something profound. You didn't just survive a sandstorm, you helped sweep it up. The rooster doesn't crow, the rooster screams. You wake up in a panic, momentarily convinced you're under attack by a demon disguised as poultry. Your heart races, your head throbs. You sit upright, breathing dust and confusion. A dog yawns beside you and looks mildly impressed. Today, you're told, is a temple day. Now, you've seen rituals before. Flowers, oil lamps, soft chanting. But this is something else. A larger gathering. More people. More preparation. more incense than any single human respiratory system should reasonably withstand. You're led to a stone platform near the city centre, slightly elevated and framed by rows of baked brick benches. It's not ornate, no towering spires, just clean symmetry, a small fire altar, and an atmosphere that suggests something important is about to happen. People arrive in silence. Most wear their finest tunics, undyed linen, subtle embroidery, a few with shell bead necklaces. You look down at your own outfit, which currently smells like sand and regret, and do your best to rub out a suspicious stain. An elder begins the proceedings by circling the platform 3 times, sprinkling water from a copper bowl. Then a long ribbon of dried herbs is set alight and placed at the center. The smoke that rises is thick, pungent, and, yes, mosquitoes instantly flee. You try not to weep with gratitude. Around the fire, offerings are placed in quiet procession. Someone places lentils in a clay dish. Another sets down a perfectly round bangle. One woman offers a small figurine of a seated bull, its expression oddly contemplative. You're handed a folded piece of cloth and pointed toward the altar. You don't know what to do with it. You fold it twice, bow your head, and place it on the bricks like you're tucking in a very small, sacred baby. No one laughs. Someone actually nods. Maybe you've invented a new rite. The chanting begins. Softly at first, almost like humming. A man taps a small drum. Another keeps rhythm by clapping 2 stones together. The effect is hypnotic. The sound rises slowly, spiraling upward with the smoke. You begin to sway, involuntarily. Everyone does, even the chickens. It's contagious, like a breeze catching long grass. Historians still debate the nature of Indus Valley spirituality. Were they polytheists, animists, proto-Hindus? The truth is elusive. No temples like in Mesopotamia, no ziggurats, no massive statues of gods. Just these small platforms, these figurines, these moments, and yet, standing here in the heat, heart, thumping in time with the drum, wrapped in smoke and silence, you feel it. Something bigger than explanation, something older than architecture. Then come the mosquitoes, because of course they do. They arrive like a winged brigade, zeroing in on your exposed ankles and earlobes. You slap one, then 3 more land. You try to maintain spiritual dignity while wildly twitching like an interpretive dancer with a grudge. A nearby child hands you a leaf bundle. You crush it and smear the juice on your arms. It smells awful. It works, possibly too well. The mosquitoes now avoid you in a wide radius, so do some of the people. The ceremony winds down. People rise. There are no announcements, no clapping, just a gentle dispersal, like water soaking back into the earth. You follow the group to a shaded courtyard where food is being prepared, community style. Large clay pots of lentils bubble gently. Flatbreads are stacked in cloth-lined baskets. Someone hands you a cup of spiced buttermilk. It's sour and strange, but cooling. You're assigned to assist with distribution. You carry trays. You pour ladles of lentil stew into outstretched bowls. You try not to drop anything. One man holds out a shell instead of a bowl. You fill it. He nods, satisfied. A woman hands you a folded palm leaf shaped like a cup. You pour. It leaks slightly. She shrugs and drinks it anyway. The mood is warm. No feasting frenzy, just calm appreciation. Food is shared, not hoarded. Laughter trickles in between bites. Someone throws a bit of flatbread to a skinny dog, who catches it mid-air and looks smug. Later, you help wash the clay bowls in a shallow basin filled with soapy water made from crushed ash and herbs. The residue is gritty, but effective. Your fingers are prunes within minutes. Your heart, oddly, is light. In the evening, you're guided to the city's edge, to a long raised path where people gather to watch the stars. They call it the night way, not for travel, just for gazing. You lie, back on a warm stone slab, the air around you buzzing gently with night insects. A flute plays somewhere. Someone is humming a lullaby. The stars emerge slowly. No city lights, no pollution, just velvet sky and quiet awe. A boy next to you points upward and traces a shape, a bull, maybe, or a fish, or a cart. He doesn't speak, just draws constellations in the air as though passing down secrets. You whisper something about Orion. He nods. No idea what you said, but he agrees anyway. You lie still, watching the sky. The breeze is kind tonight. The goats are asleep. The mosquitoes have moved on to someone else. You survived a temple day and mosquito veneration, and somehow you're beginning to understand that survival here is less about strength and more about rhythm, about being part of a living thing, about watching, listening, fumbling through, and then trying again tomorrow. The stars blink overhead. So do your eyes. Sleep finds you there, on the nightway. You do not resist. You wake on the nightway to the gentle prod of a stick and the familiar sight of an unimpressed goat. It snorts, licks your forehead, thanks, and trots away. You sit up, grit cascading from your tunic like you've been rolled in ancient breakfast, cereal, and rub your face until you remember you haven't washed it yet. It's still dark, though the sky's edge glows faintly silver. You're handed a damp cloth and a cup of warm water by a man with shoulders like roof beams. He points toward the wall. You, it seems, are on guard duty again. Of course you are. But this time, it's ceremonial. The city's perimeter wall is quiet in the pre-dawn chill. The baked bricks still hold a whisper of yesterday's heat, but the air is cool, heavy with river mist, and every sound, owl hoot, soft step, distant cough, feels amplified. Your companion, a woman this time, says nothing. She simply takes her place beside the rampart and stares out toward the horizon. You do the same. Below, you lies. A stretch of field, neatly divided by irrigation trenches. Just beyond that, the river. Silver, slow, eternal. Somewhere in its shallows, a bird cries out. You shift your weight, try not to yawn too loudly, and clutch your staff like it's a comforting myth. Guard duty here isn't about enemy invasion. There's no war, no looming threat of barbarians. The Indus cities left no evidence of violence, no battle murals, no victory carvings, no royal war gods holding heads. Historians still marvel and argue about this. Was it truly peaceful? Were there threats we can't detect? Or did they simply keep their disputes quiet, like a bad smell in a communal room? Whatever the answer, your duty now is not to fight, it's to watch. And you do. As the horizon splits into molten gold and the sun slips up like a cautious guest, you understand why this role matters. The light hits the rooftops in ribbons. People begin to stir. Fires are rekindled. Water is fetched. And somewhere, someone sneezes with the confidence of a king. Your shift ends without drama. You're given a warm flatbread with sesame seeds pressed into the top. It's chewy, slightly sweet, and tastes like victory. A child appears, sticks a flower behind your ear, and vanishes without a word. You spend the next hour rinsing soot from the communal cookpots with ash paste, chatting silently with an old man who wears more bangles than tunic. He gestures often, big, theatrical swoops, and you nod like you understand. You absolutely don't. At some point, you're sent to help repair a section of the street drain. It's a simple, elegant system. Baked bricks angled just enough to carry wastewater away from homes and toward the larger covered channels. You help fit bricks into place. You are allowed to smear the mortar. You are not allowed to align the slope. That job goes to a man with a stick and the aura of someone who yells at puddles. Still, it feels like progress. You glance up at the sky. Clouds gather, wispy and fast. It might rain. You look around for umbrellas, tarps, raincoats. No such thing. But that's fine. Roofs here are flat. Water is welcome. It fills the cisterns, cools the bricks, settles the dust. Around midday, The drizzle begins. You tilt your head upward, feel the first drops hit your face. They're warm, soft, the kind of rain that whispers instead of shouts. The city changes. Children dash into the streets, shouting, spinning in circles. Adults drag water jars outside, placing them just so. You join the dance of the damp, helping. Line up vessels, sweeping errant leaves from the drain mouths, blinking through water streaks. The smell of the rain on hot earth is almost overwhelming, like spices simmering, like memory, like joy. Later, soaked but smiling, you help hang linens to dry. You are handed a bowl of soup, thin, peppery, made from something green and fibrous. You don't ask, you slurp. It's glorious. Someone leads you to a quiet corner where rows of pots sit in neat lines. You're told to sort them. Round ones here, tall ones there, cracked ones. You know what? Give those to the goat. The goat does not care. As evening arrives, a low horn is blown, mournful and steady. It's time for offerings at the city's smaller shrines. You're handed a lantern and a dish of spiced rice. You walk the narrow streets alongside others, the path lit by 1,000 flickering lamps. In doorways, the city hums with quiet reverence. At one corner, a woman pours milk into a shallow bowl for a figurine of what might be a goddess, or a tree spirit, or someone's great-grandmother carved in a moment of religious ambiguity. You bow. Just in case. You return your lamp to its hook and sit beneath a tamarind tree near the bathhouse. The air smells of wet earth and incense. A group of teenagers nearby is playing a game involving sticks and a spinning seed pod. They shout, they argue, they laugh. One of them falls. Everyone cheers. You smile. And then, for the first time, someone says your name, or something close to your name. You look up, startled. It's the potter's apprentice, the one who saved your terrible bangle from becoming a cautionary tale. She holds up a bead. It's smooth, polished, a deep red carnelian. She presses it into your hand and nods. A gift. You can't speak. You just nod too. Too quickly. Too awkwardly. She smirks and walks off. You hold the bead tightly as you lie down that night on the rooftop, the sky clearing once more. Stars blinking, into place. You've been here. How long? A day? A lifetime? Does it matter? Because tonight the wind is gentle, the goats are quiet, and somewhere deep in the city, someone is still laughing. And you're part of it now. You awake before dawn, not from noise, not from goats or sneezing chickens, but from an unfamiliar calm. The city still sleeps. Even the roosters are hushed, as if the entire Indus Valley has decided, just this once, to hit snooze. You rise slowly, bones cracking like fresh-fired pottery, and stretch beneath a softening sky. A fog drapes the city, clinging low to rooftops and weaving gently between brick alleyways. It smells like damp earth, river moss, and the faintest trace of burned sesame. Today, they tell you, is the day of the counting. You don't know what that means, but you're already handed a ledger, a flat tablet of wet clay, and a stylus made from a shaved reed. This seems like a terrible idea. You're led to a granary, not the massive one near the river, but a smaller structure that smells deeply of millet, barley, and generational anxiety. Inside, rows of sacks sit like well-fed ghosts. Beside each one stands a seal, pressed into a neat lump of clay indicating contents, ownership, or possibly someone's mood when it was packed. You wouldn't know. You're paired with a stern man whose only facial expression is, "You're doing it wrong." He counts aloud, points at each sack, and gestures for you to mark. You try. Your numbers look like a lizard having an existential crisis. He sighs. Then he takes your hand. Yes, like you're 5, and shows you the motion again. You nod. You count again. Slowly. Carefully. This time your tablet isn't beautiful, but at least it doesn't appear to be a warning from the gods. Counting wasn't just arithmetic here. It was order. The Indus Valley ran on systems, weights, measures, seals, tiny cubes of chiseled stone, each precisely carved, each part of a standardized set. Historians still argue how such consistency was maintained across vast regions. Central. Authority, local autonomy, unholy amounts of peer review, whatever it was, it worked. And now, you're one muddy fingerprint away from contributing to it. Later, you're sent to help catalogue tools. Bronze blades, shell needles, fishhooks shaped like smiles. You're handed each one, asked to mark its count on your tablet. You hesitate, over a slender copper blade. Light, balanced, still sharp. You wonder whose hands held it before yours. A hunter, a healer, a baker who had to get very serious about bread. The answer doesn't matter. What matters is that you don't drop it. You return the blade, scribble your mark, and get a small nod from your supervisor. Progress. You take a short break near the well, washing your hands, your face, your hope of ever removing all the clay from under your nails. A young boy sits beside you and begins stacking stones. Not for a game, but in precise alignment, size, color, angle. You try to help. He gently removes your contribution. Fair. By midday, the counting becomes communal. Families gather in courtyards, laying out household goods, baskets, beads, utensils, seals. Each item is checked, noted, and returned to its place. Children chase after stray goats. One woman tries to tally her chickens, but they refuse to sit still. You attempt to help. You're pecked. Twice. It's not just inventory, it's ritual. A declaration, we are here, we have enough, we remember. Afterward, a small feast. Modest, but special. Rice cooked with herbs. Flatbread with actual butter. A drink made from fermented palm and a hint of roasted cumin. You sip. It's warm, odd, and absolutely potent. You help clean up, brushing crumbs into clay pots, stacking used plates near the bathhouse, gently herding a chicken who has decided to roost inside someone's offering bowl. It stares at you with defiance. You stare back with fatigue. Evening falls fast. You're invited to the rooftop of the eldest weaver's house. She sits wrapped in 3 shawls, hair braided tightly, with eyes like ancient slate. She says nothing as you arrive, just pats the mat. Beside her, below, the city glows. You can see it all. The straight avenues, the rooftops smeared with sunset, the last flickers of market lamps, the hum of water from the cisterns, the clink of tools being laid to rest. She hands you a bangle. It's wide, simple, carved from shell. You look at her. She nods. Slowly. A gift. You slip it on. It's snug. Heavy with silence. In the distance, someone begins a slow rhythm on a drum. Then another joins. Not a song, just a pattern. A heartbeat. She leans back and closes her eyes. You do the same. And in that quiet, between drum beats and breath, you realize you're not thinking about your life back home. Not about phones or lights or internet. Just this moment, this city, these people, these rhythms. Tomorrow maybe you'll be sent to tend goats or paint pots or fix a broken drain. But tonight you counted. You were counted. You existed. And for now, that is enough. The next morning greets you not with chaos, not with a goat, not even with a slap of weather, but with stillness. A soft kind of stillness. The kind that arrives only after everything's been cleaned, sorted, counted, and put back just so. You rise slowly, joints objecting only mildly today. That's progress. The shell bangle on your wrist clicks softly as you stretch. It feels solid, familiar, like it's always been there. Your final task, they tell you, is simple. Help carry offerings for the river. You're not entirely sure what that means, but by now you've learned not to ask. Asking leads to explanations. Explanations lead to more chores. So you nod, and accept the bundle they hand you, soft cloth wrapped around something that smells like herbs, honey, and smoke. You're joined by a quiet procession, 10, maybe 12, people, all barefoot, all carrying something wrapped. Beads, flowers, a little cooked grain, a folded shawl. One person even carries a tiny clay flute, not to play, just to place. The river path winds gently through tall reeds and crumbling banks where frogs leap at your shadow. The water glistens, low and wide and ancient. You can smell it before you see it, silt and algae and the slow memory of rain. At the water's edge, the group forms a loose semicircle. No instructions, no script, just presence. One by one, offerings are unwrapped and laid upon the river's surface or placed gently in the shallows. Your bundle contains a small dish of sweetened lentils and a few marigold petals. You set it down. The dish bobs once, then drifts. This isn't worship. Not exactly. It's acknowledgement. A nod to the river that gives life and sometimes takes it back. A conversation with nature. A ritual without words. Historians still debate whether the Indus Valley people had organized religion. There are no temples with names, no priestly class etched into tablets. Just these quiet ceremonies, these gestures, these patterns. No doctrine, just doing. The water moves slowly, the sun is rising. The group disbands without a word. You linger, not because you're expected to, because you want to. You sit on a rock, watching the current pull at the edge of your tunic, and realize you're not just a visitor anymore. You haven't been for days. You've stopped checking for clocks. You've stopped measuring time in hours. Now it's counted in meals, in tasks completed, in things dropped and picked back up, in the rhythm of brick and breeze, grain and goats, laughter and lentils. You've seen a city with no war, no rulers, no monuments, but so much order, so much care. You've watched people live, not with grandeur, but with grace, not with riches, but with rituals. Every sweep of a broom, every shard of pottery, every bead drilled and polished by hand. They are all part of something too quiet to brag, but too vast to ignore. And somehow, impossibly, you've become part of it. You trace a line in the wet mud with your fingertip, a spiral maybe, or a fish, or just a doodle for the river to swallow. You stand. You walk back slowly, taking the long route through side alleys where children are feeding chickens and someone is drawing a pattern on a doorway in ash. You pause to help a woman move a heavy water jar to her roof. She thanks you with a slice of dried fig. You chew slowly. You pass the bathhouse, where a man you recognize is splashing water on his face and humming. You pass the marketplace, half assembled, with merchants laughing over cups of something steaming. You pass a familiar goat. It does not acknowledge you. That too is a kind of affection. Your day ends on a rooftop, the same one where you first questioned your place, the same one where you first swept, first sat, first sighed. The sun sinks, the city breathes. And as you lie back on the warm bricks, eyes drifting shut, you know, you wouldn't have survived your first day in the Indus Valley. But now you just might not want to leave. And now, as the sun sets for the final time on this little adventure through the quiet heart of the Indus Valley, you feel the rhythm slow, the air cools, the fires dim, the sounds of clay and grain and water and laughter fade, leaving only the hush of earth and the distant trickle of river. You are no longer rushing. There is nothing urgent now, nothing to carry, nothing to count. The goats are curled beneath the trees. The beadmakers are done for the day. The bath is still, its water catching the last sliver of moonlight. You feel the bricks beneath you, warm, familiar, worn smooth by centuries of feet that walked before. Yours. You remember the scent of sweet rice, the cool touch of rain, the weight of a bangle gently slipped onto your wrist. You breathe. In through your nose, slow, gentle, out through your mouth, long. quiet. The city you walked through wasn't loud. It didn't boast, but it held you, piece by piece, task by task, until your pulse began to match its pace, until your clumsy presence became part of its song. You were not a visitor anymore. You were part of a rhythm. Let that rhythm follow you now as you drift into stillness. No more tools, no more sand, just breath and softness and sleep. Good night, traveler. Let the river carry the rest. The river.